I was out on my small fishing kayak, enjoying the calm waters and the warm sunshine. It was a beautiful day, and I had no idea that it was about to turn into a nightmare. Suddenly, I felt a jolt and heard a loud bang. My kayak had hit something hard and was taking on water rapidly. Panic set in as I realized that I was sinking, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. I waved my arms frantically, shouting for help. I was alone, with no way to communicate with the outside world. That's when I saw it, the dorsal fin of a shark circling around my boat. At first, I thought it was just a curious animal, but then I saw its eyes, and I knew it was hunting me. I grabbed my fishing rod and tried to fend it off, but the shark was too fast and too strong. It slammed into the boat, rocking it back and forth, and I lost my balance. I fell into the water and was face to face with the predator. Its jaws opened wide, and I could see rows of razor-sharp teeth as it lunged at me. I fought back with everything I had, kicking and punching, but the shark was relentless. It circled around me, attacking from all angles, and I knew I was running out of time. As the water turned red with my blood, I thought about my family, my friends, and all the things I wanted to do in life. But it was too late. The shark had won. I don't know how long I was in the water, but when I came to, I was floating on a piece of driftwood. My boat was gone, and I was alone in the middle of the ocean, with no idea how to get back to shore. It was a terrifying experience, one that I will never forget. And to this day, I still feel the phantom pain of the shark's bite, a constant reminder of the power and danger of the ocean. The sea has always been a source of peace and tranquility for me, but that all changed during one fateful voyage. I was on a solo sailing trip, far from the shore and surrounded by nothing but the endless expanse of blue. It was a beautiful day, with clear skies and gentle winds. I was basking in the sun and enjoying the serenity of the moment when I saw something in the distance. At first, I thought it was a mirage, but as I got closer, I realized that it was a ship, abandoned and adrift. My curiosity got the better of me, and I decided to investigate. As I approached the ship, I noticed that something was off. The sails were torn, and the deck was littered with debris. But what really gave me chills was the eerie silence. There was no sound of the wind, no creaking of the wood, nothing. It was as if time had stood still. As I climbed aboard, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up, and I had an overwhelming sense of dread. But I pushed on, determined to solve the mystery. As I made my way through the dark and musty interior, I heard a noise. It was a faint whisper, but I couldn't make out what it was saying. I followed the sound, and it led me to the captain's quarters. There, I saw something that will haunt me for the rest of my life. The captain's body was lying on the floor, surrounded by symbols and strange markings. It looked like he had been the victim of some kind of ritual sacrifice. I tried to run, but the door slammed shut, trapping me inside. The ship began to creak and groan, and I realized that it was moving, despite the lack of wind. And then I heard it. A low and guttural growl, coming from somewhere deep within the ship. I was paralyzed with fear, unsure of what to do. And then, just as suddenly as it had started, the noise stopped. The ship came to a halt, and the door opened. I stumbled out, gasping for air, and looked around. The ship was gone, vanished into thin air. To this day, I'm not sure what happened. Was it a ghost ship, haunted by the captain's vengeful spirit? Or was it something more sinister, a cult or secret society using the abandoned vessel for their dark rituals? I may never know, but one thing is for sure. I will never forget that scary encounter at sea. It was a beautiful day in the Caribbean, and I was on a cruise ship with my family. We were enjoying the warm weather, the delicious food, and the beautiful scenery. But then, everything changed. As we sailed through a narrow channel between two islands, the sea became rough. The ship started to rock back and forth, and people were stumbling and falling. It was chaos. Suddenly, there was a loud bang, and the ship listed sharply to one side. It felt like we were going to capsize. People were screaming and crying, and I could see the fear in their eyes. The ship's crew quickly got everyone to the lifeboats, and we were lowered into the water. We watched as the ship slowly sank, taking all of our belongings with it. We were stranded in the middle of the sea, with no food or water, and no way to call for help. It was a terrifying experience, and I felt completely helpless. After several hours, a passing ship spotted us and rescued us. We were taken to a nearby island, where we waited for several days until we could be flown back home. That experience changed me. It made me realize how fragile life is, and how quickly things can go wrong. But it also made me appreciate the beauty and wonder of the ocean, and the resilience of the human spirit. It was a bright and sunny day, and my friends and I were on a fishing trip off the coast of Florida. We had been out on the water for several hours, and the fish were not biting. We decided to move to a different spot, and that's when things took a turn for the worse. As we were heading to the new location, we saw a storm approaching. The sky turned dark, and the winds picked up. We quickly tried to make our way back to shore, but the waves grew larger and larger. Suddenly, we heard a loud banging sound coming from the back of the boat. We turned around to see that the motor had stopped working. We were adrift, at the mercy of the storm. The waves were now so high that they were crashing over the sides of the boat. We were soaked and shivering, and we knew that we were in serious trouble. We tried to call for help on the radio, but the storm had knocked out the signal. As the storm raged on, we saw something in the distance. It was a massive waterspout, spinning towards us. We were frozen in fear as it approached, unsure of what to do. We watched in horror as the waterspout got closer and closer, and we braced ourselves for impact. The waterspout hit us with tremendous force, and the boat was tossed around like a toy. We were screaming and holding on for dear life, not sure if we were going to make it. After what felt like an eternity, the waterspout dissipated, and we were left battered and bruised, but alive. We were eventually rescued by the Coast Guard, and we made it back to shore safely. That experience was the scariest moment of my life, and it made me realize just how unpredictable and powerful the ocean can be. I never take my safety for granted when I'm out on the water, and I always make sure to be prepared for any situation. It was supposed to be a relaxing weekend getaway with my friends, but it turned out to be a nightmare. We had chartered a boat and were sailing towards a secluded island in the Pacific, where we planned to spend a few days sunbathing and swimming. As we sailed closer to the island, I began to notice strange things happening on the boat. The radio would suddenly turn on by itself, and we would hear eerie voices whispering in the background. Our phones were not working, and the compass seemed to be malfunctioning. As the sun began to set, we saw something in the distance. It was a dark, misty figure, floating on the water. We tried to ignore it and continued sailing, but the figure seemed to be following us. That's when we heard a loud banging sound coming from below deck. We cautiously went down to investigate and found that the hatch leading to the engine room was open. We were all confused as we knew we had secured it before setting off. As we made our way towards the hatch, we heard strange noises coming from inside the engine room. The noises grew louder and more intense, and we began to feel a strange energy emanating from the room. We tried to shut the hatch, but it wouldn't budge. Suddenly, the boat started rocking back and forth violently, and we were thrown to the ground. We heard a voice whispering in our ears, but we couldn't make out what it was saying. It felt like the boat was being possessed by some otherworldly force, and we were powerless to stop it. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the boat stopped shaking, and the voice stopped whispering. We were all shaken and terrified, not knowing what had just happened. As we continued towards the island, we saw the dark figure once again, but this time it was closer. It seemed to be beckoning us towards it. We tried to steer clear of it, but it was too late. The figure enveloped the boat, and we were transported to another realm. We were surrounded by a misty, otherworldly landscape, with strange creatures lurking in the shadows. We tried to escape, but it seemed like we were trapped in this otherworldly dimension. After what felt like an eternity, we were suddenly back on our boat, sailing towards the island. We all looked at each other, not knowing if what had just happened was real or just a figment of our imaginations. That weekend getaway turned out to be a terrifying experience that we would never forget, and we all vowed never to sail towards that island again. If you liked this video, please subscribe. Why did the ghost refuse to go near the ocean? Because it had a ghastly glimpse at sea and it scared the shit out of him.